Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I am Kat Hobson, your host, and we are going to have a fantastic show for you tonight because the guest is phenomenal. Before we get started, though, I just wanted to let everyone know that it's almost October. We are going to have so much fun, and I'm here to tell you that I've got my favorite monster on for Halloween. So, some of y'all figure out who that was. I'll drop a few clues here and then through the month. But we are going to have just so much fun. I love October. And this year, I will be with y'all instead of in Key West for Halloween. So my live show will not be from the Key West Cemetery. I know, tragic, right? But it's all good. But tonight my guest is my friend and a favorite of my guests, Tony Rathman. Tony is the founder and lead investigator with Entity Voices. He is probably, I have 2. I like Tony's EVPs because of their clarity and just the quality of sound that come with these. You have to remember this guy is an equipment builder too. He knows his stuff. And he does such a great job. His wife Sherry gets some of the best responses also. I was listening to some of the EVPs that he's sharing with us tonight. Y'all are going to love them. I mean, and I'm going to let you listen to them more than once because they're just that good. And Tony, I'm going to bring you in now because you do so many other things. You have your own show over on KGRA-DB, which is one of my favorite other stations. I have always loved Race, and I know that he sold it, but he's still involved. And y'all have some of the greatest shows and hosts over there too. But thank you so much for being here tonight.
Well, thank you, Kat. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to come on, and it's always a pleasure to talk with you, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, we have kind of a mutual admiration society going on.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
And I knew how great your EVPs were before we ever actually met because you won a contest that I was judging with those. And yes. I was blown away by your work.
Well, thank you very much. It has been a passion of my wife's and mine now for, I think we're coming up on 12 years in February of 2022. So we're a few months away yet, but, EVPs and spirit communication has always been one thing that just absolutely blows us away each and every time we get something. And there's so many reasons for that, but one of them is that there's so much information involved in getting a vocal response that goes even above and beyond the actual message that's said. I mean, you can tell if they're male, female. You can tell if they're an adult or a child. You can tell what language they're speaking. You can tell if there's any type of dialect attached to the words that they're saying. And you get all that. You can tell an emotional state, whether they're happy, yes, whether they sound frightened, all of that above and beyond what's actually said. So to us, it's the ultimate.
Well, I know that the emotional state sometimes can really surprise you. It has me.
Yep.
On a couple of different locations when I was doing EVP sessions. And, I do not like white noise. I lose things in white noise and I won't hear it until I go home. It's just everybody hears differently.
Right.
So, I don't like the spooky voices from the phone apps, right? Because with the reverberation, I lose things too. But, I tend to do pretty well if I'm just walking around with a voice recorder saying, who is that walking up over there? I heard you walking above me. So I do well like that. And I will, yep. I think that different people have different ears. And that's why that's the way that is. But
yeah, and I would agree with that. There's a training curve to the ear, whether you're just plain listening to electronic voice phenomena on a direct recorder. There's training to the ear if you're looking to spirit boxes, and there's no doubt I agree that white noise can be such an interference, and after 10 minutes of listening to it, you have such a headache that it's hard to go on if you've recorded longer than that.
Well, it does, and like I said, I was in a facility that I knew was destined to be torn down before long, and I got a response when I asked what had happened to the people in the area I was in. And it broke my heart, and it still breaks my heart, because buried in the white noise was a response that said, no, they shot me. And wow. And I was sharing this with our friend Rick. I sent it to him. And at the end of it, I thought it said, it was awful. And I had not heard that, because as soon as I heard him say they stabbed me, I turned it off because I felt like such a horrible paranormal investigator because I wasn't able to hear it and respond to him there. This building is going to be torn down. He's not, he's going to go wherever they go when they lose their homes, thinking that I didn't care. And that has always bothered me. And then to hear him say, it was awful, which is how I interpreted that. That was not how Rick interpreted it. but it was even a brand new, oh my goodness, right?
Sure.
So that's why I don't like white noise.
Right. No, and totally understand. The only advantage to using, whether it has white noise or not, now we've built a box called the Evox that has no white noise at all. It's still available for the spirits to use, but you don't hear it, which really helps in clearing up the voices that come through. But the advantage to a spirit box is, like you said, you get that response in real time, which allows you to frame your next question based off of what you heard. Whereas EVP, you got to wait till it's actually reviewed to hear it. Even if it is right there on spot, you still have to play it back and go through it to hear it. But that is one of the advantages. But totally understand your frustration with that scenario, because that would be a tough one.
It was. And, I know that with what you do, y'all have investigated some very exotic locations. And the response that y'all get, your team as a whole, as well as just you and your wife, they're just absolutely fantastic in some instances. It's like, how on earth did you get that?
Yeah, you know what? Even to this day, there's not a better feeling than when you get a response, especially when it's clear, Class A. That excitement level has never gone away for us. But I feel like I owe a lot of the great responses that we get to my wife, because she trained me really well. Because what she said, I'd go in, I'd just start asking questions, and she said, "Whoa, stop." And we did this for years, but she'd say, "Introduce yourself. Let's introduce both of ourselves. Tell them why we're here. Let them know we're not here to disrupt them or hurt them. We're just here to talk to them." And she would do that every time. And I feel like her making sure that we did that really gained some trust from the entities, not only the places that we were investigating at that time, but everything forward. And I really owe that to her.
Well, that's why y'all are such a great team, in my opinion.
It does. It did make a difference, and it still does today. So yeah, she did that perfectly.
Well, I know that y'all were at the Copper Canyon, the old Dodge Hospital, and that has been sold, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that is correct. It sold about 4 months ago, and was a little devastating to us that we lost it.
I know it was.
Life happens, and it goes on, and there's hundreds of thousands of places to investigate. But that one was in our backyard, and we'll always miss that place because it had great activity in it.
Well, and frankly, it was a lovely location. I mean, I know it had the structural issues. That's the case with a lot of old facilities like that. But old hospitals have so much to offer. They do.
And this place did as well. And we ran it for roughly about 3.5 years. But it wasn't until one of the last investigations we did that we caught on DVR this 3-dimensional shadow figure, which just blew us away.
Yes.
It was incredible. And, the wanting to go back and see what else we can. But like I said, in 3.5 years, we had seen them with our own eyes, and we've captured them on photographs, but never captured one on a DVR camera. And to have done that was a real treat for us.
Well, y'all were sleeping in the hospital that night, right?
We actually were. That was the first night that we did that. And all the times we'd investigate till 1 or 2 in the morning, and then we'd go home. But that night, I said to Cherie, let's just spend the night here. And we were on the absolute other end of the hospital when the cameras were running, and we were on the 2nd floor. So unless somebody was outside and was 15 feet tall, they never would have cast a shadow into that hallway. And this thing was just, it was phenomenal, just phenomenal.
And I hate that we can't share video here, but that to me was just a fantastic piece of evidence. It's almost like, yeah, you went to all this effort, you're still here. Let me show myself to you.
Well, and the fact that the hospital sold not more than a week after that,
yes,
and we lost it and weren't allowed back in there. Cherie said to me, maybe that was just their way of saying, okay, you've been here how many nights a week for the last 3 years? You were looking for us. Here I am.
Yep. I mean, I've got goosebumps talking about that, but I agree with her. Yeah,
I think she might be right.
I think she might be right too, but she's a smart cookie.
She is.
I mean, she is. And she's a brilliant investigator in her own right. So
she's got she's got a personality that just is easy to talk to, and I think that opens up Spirit's ability to respond to her. And we'll play a couple of clips tonight that she did, and you'll be able to hear the type of responses she gets from simple questions, and it's pretty amazing.
It is. But, I just think she has that spirit, right? She's welcoming to them. She's concerned for them. She's polite to them. And they respond in kind, for the most part.
You're exactly right. I mean, it's no different than, people talking to people today. How you treat them is how they're going to respond. And, the old saying, if, treat somebody like you want to be treated yourself, she always did that when speaking with spirits and entities, and it has paid off tremendously.
Well, I tell you, I took a page out of her book because I wasn't aggressive. I was just more assertive.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in places that were kind of like old school male locations,
right,
that was not appreciated.
Yeah,
okay.
There are circumstances that I can understand that. Yeah.
And I have been called bad words. And it actually got to the point of a joke. It's like everybody in the spirit world was like, hey, she's back. Especially when I had pneumonia for so long and I came back. I was still kind of, shouldn't have been out, but I was. And beautiful location. I'd never seen anything like it, although I'd heard about them all my life. It was just fabulous. And so I said, so why is this where you hang out? I know it's absolutely beautiful, but was this just like your spot? And out came the word. And I thought, how ugly are you? I just asked you a question about the beauty of your surroundings. And it was really funny because I was very bent out of shape. It was just,
wow.
It's like, why are you doing that? You are just rude. So that was funny.
That can happen, though. That can happen.
I bet she doesn't get called that much, does she?
No, she actually, in, like I said, the 11 plus years we've been doing this, no, she usually gets pretty kind responses. But I think that also has to do with the type of person that you are and the type of energy you give off. Spirits can associate with that, and you will draw like-minded spirits to you with the type of energy you portray and the type of person that you are. And she's usually pretty good about getting real positive ones, and that's just because that's the type of personality she has.
Well, and she's just so cute and petite and just a lovely woman too, from everything I've seen. Just,
well, thank you.
She just is that person, I think.
She is. I will agree with that. She is.
Well, what are you going to do now for your next favorite investigation location?
Well, let me start with what we just completed, because
yes,
it was phenomenal. We did what we called the EVPI, which of course is Entity Voices Paranormal Investigations, with our full, well, not our full team. We were missing 2 members of our full team, but 4 of us. And we went to the tri-state area and we did the 4-mansion tour in 4 days. So we did.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. We did Kingsland Manor, Kreischer Mansion, Selma Mansion, and White Hill Mansion in a 4-day period, which we probably won't do again because the late nights, and I'm talking late, the earliest I think we went to bed was about 5:30 in the morning, and the latest was like 7:45. Then we'd sleep for 2 or 3 hours and get up and move to our next location, and we were in New Jersey, we were in Staten Island, we were in Pennsylvania, and we were all over.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you just a second, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because we have to take a break. I did not realize we had been going on for this long. Time flies. We'll be right back, y'all. You come back too, and if you have any questions for Tony, just pop them in the chat room. We'll see you on the flip side.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? Well, you see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watched a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step, after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page, is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics, from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of, a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm so glad you're here because, you know, I love talking to people who are great at what they do. When I know them and enjoy their work and am familiar with their methodologies and stuff, it's just gravy. It's so awesome. So, and not only that, but he brought toys. So, Tony Rathman, welcome back. I am so glad you're here.
Well, thank you. It is a pleasure to be here.
And I interrupted you when you were talking about the fantastic hunts that you were doing in all these great locations.
Yeah, we had never investigated in the tri-state area before, and it's an area just loaded with great paranormal locations, and I couldn't name them all off if I tried. But we wanted to make sure that we got in as many as we could, and our two teammates, Ron Iacovetti and Lourdes Gonzalez, put together, along with Anthony Simonelli and a bunch of other people, just a fantastic set of 4 locations, which, like I said, was Kingsland Manor, Kreischer Mansion, Selma Mansion, and White Hill Mansion. And we're talking ages of the late 1700s to the early 1700s. I think White Hill was circa 1720 or 1723, I think was the date. So you're talking about places that were basically built, hundreds of years ago. So that was awesome, and they're still standing. But the event was absolutely phenomenal. We caught amazing evidence, different evidence at each location, but something phenomenal at each. The original Kingsland that we did the first night was mostly vocals, but between spirit boxes, between direct radio voice, between EVPs, some of the responses that came through were just phenomenal. And then we went to Kreischer Mansion, and same thing, but we also caught on a FLIR thermal camera a little boy in the basement, which was just shocking. And these videos are actually out on our YouTube channel and our Facebook channel. We're about to release Selma, and then we still have White Hill to go through. But Selma, same thing. We had just amazing EVPs, responses. We were running parabolic mics that ran in quiet sections of the mansions, and just picked up some of the most incredible responses that just came out of nowhere. And wow. It was an exhausting experience, but one that I wouldn't trade for anything, because it was incredible.
Well, those are the best ones, right?
Absolutely.
The ones that work you to death, but oh my gosh, how lucky am I to be here while I'm exhausted and wishing that I had to get bed.
Yeah.
I share that enthusiasm. But, well, I'd have to ask you, because I'm so interested in Selma, because we have a Selma here that has a mansion, and I've investigated it, and for years when people talked about Selma, that's what I thought they were talking about. And then I learned differently. Well, I mean, we only have ghosts in the South, right? But, so I actually interviewed the gentleman from up there, and it was one of my most fun interviews, because I had no concept of what to expect. I didn't know what he did, what the activity was there. And man, if you got a third of that, that was the coolest night ever.
Oh yeah. And he actually gave us a little bit of information about some things that had occurred. Apparently the day or the night we were there, activity had really escalated in the last couple weeks. And he was explaining some of the things that occurred, and he doesn't like to do that because he doesn't want to portray stories and then have somebody come in and not have that stuff happen, because anybody who paranormal investigates knows you can't control it. It happens when it wants to happen, and there's nothing you can do about it. But it was great to hear those, just because it painted a really clear picture about everything that was going on there.
It's interesting, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I was a little overcome when he was telling me about some of them, simply because of the volume.
Right.
And when you paranormal investigate, because you're a electronic voice phenomenon guy, right?
Yep.
That is you to a T. It's your skill. It's your passion. It's obviously your passion. You wouldn't be as good at it if it wasn't.
Right. That's true.
But when you are doing a full-scale investigation, you go full out with that too. You use a lot of equipment.
We use we use everything from multiple different kinds of cameras, whether that be, just regular 4K cameras. We have night vision ones. We have full spectrum ones. Full spectrum ones are always great to use because it incorporates 3 different light spectrums rather than just the visual spectrum of the human eye. When we record, we'll use everything from your standard, Sony digital recorders to higher end ones. We'll also place parabolic mics in certain areas of the home and just let them run and come back later to review it, to go through them. We will use FLIR cameras, which is a heat signature camera, to see what can be caught. We will use REM pods, dowsing rods, laser grids, motion detectors, you name it. If it exists or has been used within the paranormal, we probably have it. We probably own it. And the biggest thing with traveling, like when we went to the East Coast, was the fact that we had to get on a plane because they limit your bags and they limit batteries. Yes. But I know last time we went out to California, we literally had that car so full of equipment, we could barely sit in it.
I understand. And, I still have not mastered that because I'm a photographer as well. So if I'm going someplace that I haven't been, then I want my camera bag.
Right.
Right? So by the time I have my camera bag, my paranormal equipment bag, fortunately Delta will let you, in first class, you can have 2 suitcases. I don't always do that, but if I'm going someplace that I'm going to need paranormal and photography equipment and clothes, then it's a no-brainer. It's worth it to me to do that if I'm using points. But
you're
just,
absolutely right.
Especially if you're going someplace that's so far away and you're probably not going to be going back anytime in the foreseeable future, it's worth having what you need to do what you want to do. And my husband doesn't always agree with that, but he likes me a lot.
That's good. But you're absolutely
so I'm
right.
supported in both of my addictions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like you said, if it's a location that you're probably not going to return to anytime soon, you got to take advantage of everything you can while you're there.
Yes.
And we literally took out all the batteries out of our equipment, packed the equipment, as much of it as we could, and then we ordered every type of battery from Amazon and had them shipped, so it arrived. They were there when we were there, but you look for those ways to make it so that you can make everything happen that you want to happen. And yeah, I agree.
And you saved a lot of money and
Yes.
weight. You saved a lot of weight.
Right.
You didn't save a lot of money, but you did save a lot of weight.
They wouldn't have allowed that many batteries on anyway. I think they had a limit and a size limit on the batteries you could take. So I'm like, okay, we're just going to buy them from Amazon and ship them. And we used quite a few of them. So it was a good decision and money well spent to make sure we had the batteries we needed to run the equipment.
Well, I would have done that. And I'm going to now that you've educated me, because I'm going to Scotland next summer, and I've been trying to, because there's no way I'm leaving my Nikon. But I can use my Nikon as a digital recorder as well. It sets up as a recording camera. So, you can kill two birds with one stone with that. It's just about the lighting. So, I'm glad you brought that up because I am going to implement that little trick.
It works. It
Yes.
works. So Scotland next summer, would that happen to be the one Rick's doing?
It would happen to be. Are y'all coming?
That's awesome.
Are y'all coming?
No, I don't think we're going to be able to attend that one. Not that we wouldn't want to, because I mean, I know you've heard Rick talk many, many times about not only the amazing locations in Scotland. I mean, it's a bucket list item for us, no doubt about it.
Me too. It is one of mine.
And we will definitely be looking into it in the future. Just things right now, we've got our hands full, and probably aren't going to make that one. But the locations that they're going to, and Rick's been there, as you know, multiple times and knows these places, has interacted with these spirits, and anyone who's attending Rick's event should have just a phenomenal time.
Well, he's a hoot and a half, too.
He is. He is.
Well, we have a question in chat, and this is not unlike what you and I talked about before. Robert says, Tony probably gets asked similar questions over and over. What question do you wish that someone would ask you?
Great question.
He's a great guest. So.
That's an awesome question. Let's see. What question do I wish I was asked? Let me start with what typically gets asked. What was your scariest experience? What location do you think was the, most haunted? Those are the questions that are typically asked. What question do I wish? Yeah. What question do I wish I was asked?
Yes.
Probably that question would be, something along the lines of, what have you determined in years of investigating? What answers have you thought that you may be able to answer? Now, again, it's all within experience and theory, because there are no experts in the paranormal. There never will be. But that's probably the question I'd want somebody to ask me is, what have you learned? What changed your thought process or your reality for you in doing this for so long?
That's actually a great question, and one that we are going to be discussing, but I was saving it for the second. Not exactly that, but I have a guest coming next month who has been doing research and is he's actually done the skeptic side as well as the investigator side of the Paranormal Forever and Ever Amen. And we were talking about what we were going to talk about, and it included, what have you learned about, the different spirits and entities that you come across?
Yep.
And do you think that some of them are not spiritual, but human-based? And, like poltergeistic things.
Right.
And, what have you learned? So...
That's awesome.
After talking with him, I actually had a note that talk to Tony about this, because you've been doing this for long enough as well to have determined an opinion.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that time in the show to be able to dive into that question, because, when you go through this, day after day and week after week of being at different places, there's similarities you start to see and things that are similar from place to place, and it changes all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I look forward to that.
Well, travel brings great understanding, and even if it's limited travel, You know, if you're just going to local societies, you know,
right,
interacting with different societies, that, you know, the microcosms, but all the way up to the global travel. And y'all been to the Philippines, y'all been to all kinds of places.
Yeah, we've been Philippines, Japan. But yeah, when you can cross both cultural borders, religious differences, and still find similarities in the entity's responses or actions, it's kind of a comforting feeling to know that there is a universal out there, regardless of what your cultural background is, your religious background. And yeah, we can get into that later on as well, but cool stuff.
That's part of what I think brings the community together, because, you know, you get the people that are always just skeptical to be skeptical and call out anybody and everybody, and they just berate people and their horses' patoots.
Right.
And then, but they really don't have their own experiences to base that on, because they're so busy critiquing other people's experiences.
Right, which makes them the worst critic in the world. And that flows through, you know, there isn't a thing wrong with being skeptical.
No.
Nothing. As long as you're open-minded.
Yes.
It's the ones that, like you were just explaining, that aren't open-minded at all and will just start ripping apart and bashing investigators and their evidence. That's sad, because, you know, they think they've got all the answers. And let me tell you, no one has all the answers when it comes to the paranormal. No one, nor will we probably ever have all the answers. But that's part of what makes it so exciting, is to go to find out what you can find.
I agree. That is the part that just floats my boat. I have so much fun. That's why I like going to conferences around the country, as opposed to just sticking in my region. Because my first experience with that, we had talked about the Gettysburg Ghost Exchanges, Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. And that was the first place that I actually got to meet people from all over the country. At a UFO conference, I met people from all over the world. So this has really opened up a lot of mindsets for me. I know that talking with y'all has done that for me as well, but we're at our next break. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
But we will be right back, and I love that time flies when you're having fun. We'll be right back.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I am Kat Hobson, your host, with my guest, Tony Rathman. And Tony, I am enjoying you so much, and Robert and Chat posed just the epitome of the perfect question. So
they
thank
did.
you, Robert, for that. So we are going to cover some of those topics, and I find that interesting that was your answer.
Awesome.
Because, like I said, I've been talking with Randy this afternoon about what we were going to discuss next month when he was on, and that was part of it. So
that's fantastic. You know, people have asked me too, you know, the spirit question and going back to Rick, but one of his responses was, you know, somebody asked him one time, do you believe in ghosts? And of course, what he titled his book is Ghosts Believe in Me. But he told me that story about how that happened, why he answered that way. But, you know, there's some real truth in that. You know, when I went out looking for spirits, I mean, and everything that was experienced and we were told and what we heard and saw, and you know, the real spirit that you find is your own. It's an amazing experience. It really is.
It really is. And, you know, when you hit that, for lack of a better word, epiphany, right?
Right.
It really is just such a special moment in your experience as an investigator, a researcher, and as a human. Because they're where they are is where we will all be at some point.
Correct.
And, you know, not everyone communicates from there. But I do think that if you ask for someone, there's some sort of a network. There's some sort of communication that goes on that you can speak with who you are seeking. Have you found that to be true?
Absolutely. And I've actually been able to achieve that for, a handful or two of people that have asked me if I could take the time and try to reach individuals for them. And we've had some unbelievable success. People like Tracy Austin. She asked me with one of the newest boxes that we built to see if I could reach her father. And not only did we reach him, his voice, and I didn't even think about this when I was trying to get him to speak. I had held up a picture of Tracy and her father, and I said his name. I said, Dan, you know, there's two people in this picture. One's you, who's the other one? And in this absolute British accent came back this voice, said, that's me, daughter. And, you know, I didn't even think about it, but when I played it for Tracy, she goes, that's exactly what we said. We don't say we say me. And that's my father saying, that's me, daughter. So it was amazing.
That is amazing. Now, I'm just going to let Robert have the whole end of the top of this hour. The living, okay, are you ready?
Yep.
The living are limited in their experience and knowledge in this world. Isn't that the truth? Are the spirits limited in their knowledge of the universe after they pass? What can we hope to learn after we die?
Well, that's another great question. You know, is there a difference between what we know as human beings compared to what we're going to know as spirits? This is just my personal opinion, but that answer is yes, for a variety of reasons, including what I believe to be a universal consciousness, which is shared amongst all entities or spirits once they leave the 3D dimension of Earth. I believe that our human body is people always talk about the barrier between the living and what they say is the dead. Although if you've ever asked a spirit when they died, I can't tell you how many times we've gotten answers that says we're not dead. But anyway,
Right.
it is literally the human body that is that barrier. The human sight can only see 0.0035% of the full light spectrum. Our hearing can only hear from 20 hertz to 20 gigahertz. Again, terribly small percentage of the sound that's out there, including infrasound, high-pitched noises. Our sense of smell is limited. I mean, even compared to animals here. So there isn't a function of our human body that doesn't keep us contained within the world we're living. So is there going to be a difference? Huge difference. Again, that's my personal opinion, but yes.
What do you feel is going to be the most extreme difference based on experience?
The universal consciousness, which is going to basically, I think, give us, and I think we had this before we showed up here, but I think it's going to give us a true understanding of, who and what we are and how we connect to the universe and how every part of our universe and every other universe out there is connected. And if you damage any part of it, those effects ripple through everything else.
Yes.
And, just very simple things too about how important it is to treat other people and what even something as simple as a negative statement or word, how that can ripple through the person you said it to, and then to people who that person, their family members, and how they see them reacting. And, there's an overall attitude that goes with the way life and what we call death as humans anyway, transpires and evolves. And I think that understanding will really become clear as to where and how we fit in with everything that exists.
That's a great answer. He has another question. I knew this was coming. I didn't know who was going to ask it, but it's Robert. Have any of your EVPs referenced extraterrestrials?
That's a great question because, okay, let me start by saying if you take some of the most well-known haunted locations, Skinwalker Ranch, they have an overlap of not only spiritual or entity activity, but multidimensional activity and extraterrestrial activity.
Yes.
If you look at the Conjuring House, I am personal friends with Andrea Perron, and I've heard her say this over and over and over, but it wasn't just paranormal or spiritual activity that was occurring there. It was also extraterrestrial activity. And that fact has been shown in a lot of locations that people are claiming either spiritual paranormal activity or extraterrestrial, that there's some crossover. So then the question becomes, if you're doing an EVP or you're doing a spirit box session, exactly who are you speaking with? And we've literally asked that question, and we've gotten multitude of answers. Sometimes it is spiritual. Sometimes it is from another dimension. Sometimes it is from what they called themselves as outer realm beings. So you just never know. But are there connections and crossovers? You bet there are.
What percentage would you say in the ones that you're fairly convinced, what percentage of your work does that make up?
Percentage as far as entities versus extraterrestrial? That's really hard to determine unless they've literally given you some clue. If you look at the fact that, a lot of people, when you're getting an EVP or even a spirit box message and they're leaving a vocal, where is that vocal coming from? If it's truly a spirit, there is no throat. There is no larynx. There is no physical mechanism for it to create a physical sound wave. Then to reinforce that, you can have multiple digital recorders in the same room, and that EVP will only show up on one, not the other two.
I have had that happen several times.
Oh, yes.
It's weird.
So that means that it's not coming from a vocal source, because physics tell us if it was a sound wave going through the room, it would show on all three of the recorders. That doesn't happen when dealing with electronic voice phenomena. Then you can take a look at the fact that the answer to the question you're asking can show up on the recorder before you even finished the question.
Yes. That
tells me they're not hearing me through my vocals or through my sound waveform voice. Right. They are hearing me through some sort of mental energy, electromagnetic or, radio wave. Telepathic. So that's how they're answering the question before I'm even done asking it.
And so that is reported to be the way that extraterrestrials do communicate.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Now, if you take a look at communication with extraterrestrials, that is a response that comes through. I could hear him speaking, but his mouth wasn't moving, and I just heard him in my head. Well, hello. That's, to me, a similar match. And so that crossover can be mistaken between what we think may be spiritual and what may be extraterrestrial. And where those lines are defined for me to break it down into percentages, I really can't do that.
I understand. I just thought it would be interesting if you did.
Yeah, so would I.
No doubt. Well, Sherry in chat says, this is so interesting, and it is. I told you how special he was, right? So, I think that it's very interesting when I have gone back. I think this, if people will stop and consider it for a moment, any paranormal researcher with a voice recorder will find that this has happened multiple times in their recordings where you're getting your answer before you're done.
Right.
And you just have to wonder, because, I think that once we are no longer attached to the flesh, that we can do anything. I'm not planning on staying in the ground all the time or being stuck in somebody's house. I'm planning to see the world.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I think it's as easy, right? And I think it's as easy as just thinking about it.
Yes.
And because you're an energy source, and that thought process or consciousness, without consciousness, the paranormal just ceases to exist. People can say, well, there's residual hauntings and that energy replays like a record. Well, that's true. But, laws of physics say that an energy source needs to be recharged or it will change form or disappear. So, that you can't consider the same as an intellectual haunting, where that energy is coming from another source and it's intelligent and it's answering things that, answering questions that you're asking, and through timing and relevance, giving a relevant answer in a timely manner. I think that they have abilities that just will blow our mind about what can be done with that combination of your consciousness as you have it now in a environmental world where you're pure energy and can make things come and go at the blink of a thought.
And that's the coolest part. And we're at the top of the hour. I can't believe we're at the top of the hour. There's so much more to go on with about this. But we'll do it. We'll do it. So, and we have evidence files too.
Yes.
So I'm so excited about those. People love those because yours are so awesome. But
thank you.
We are at the top of the hour. This is your news break. And, I know I always Pollyanna and say I'm hoping for a little good news today. There has to be some. So let's give them a shot, shall we? We'll see you on the flip side of this. And it's a good time to fill up your beverage container, stretch your legs, maybe throw a few cartwheels if you're Brian D. Parsons, and come back. We'll see you on the flip side.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Alabama. Workplace fashions have changed over the years, but what matters stays the same: your employees. We've been the healthcare partner Alabamians have counted on for decades. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Alabama. We cover what matters.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says she doesn't have all the answers about COVID vaccine boosters, including whether they will be available for everyone.
We are evaluating this science in real time. We are meeting, every several weeks now to evaluate the science. The science may very well show that the rest of the population needs to be boosted, and we will provide those guidances as soon as we have the science to inform them.
Speaking there to CBS's Face the Nation. Last week, Walensky endorsed Pfizer's COVID-19 booster shots for people 65 and older or those with compromised immune systems or certain jobs. They're free, but only available for people who got the first 2 shots of Pfizer. This as the Delta variant continues to spread around much of the country, overwhelming hospitals in many states. Turkey's president says the country intends to buy a second batch of missile defense systems from Russia, a move that could likely trigger sanctions from the Biden administration. As Duri Buskarin reports, the leaders of Russia and Turkey are set to meet next week.
In an interview that aired on Face the Nation, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said his country had been unable to buy a missile defense system from a NATO ally, so it turned to Russia. In a multi-billion-dollar deal, the Turkish government purchased an S-400 missile system back in 2017, which U.S. officials warned would be an intelligence risk for the NATO alliance. When it was delivered in 2019, the U.S. responded with sanctions on top defense officials. Now, Erdogan says he plans to purchase another batch. Erdogan and Russian President Vladimir Putin are also set to meet next week to discuss several issues, including violence in northwestern Syria. For NPR News, I'm Duri Buskarin in Istanbul.
U.S. futures contracts are trading in mixed territory at last check. You're listening to NPR News. On World Day of Migrants and Refugees, advocates in Guatemala are speaking out, urging changes in policy and treatment of migrants. Guatemala is one of the countries from which more migrants flee to the U.S. Maria Martin reports.
Advocates are appealing to the governments of Guatemala and the U.S. for a more humanitarian treatment of migrants. We should work together to overcome borders of hate, racism, and indifference, says Father Mauro Vercelete, director of the migrant assistance group Casa Migrante. He called for changes in deportations to the remote jungle settlement of El Ceibo in northern Guatemala, where reports say there are no services nor security for returned migrants. Other advocates say unless conditions change drastically in their home countries, migrants will continue to flee. For NPR News, I'm Maria Martin, in Antigua, Guatemala.
This is NPR News. Iceland briefly celebrated electing a female majority parliament today before a recount showed the results fell just short of that landmark for gender parity in the country. The first count had female candidates winning 33 seats in the 63-seat parliament, but hours later a recount reversed the outcome in 3 seats, leaving female candidates with 30 seats. Still, that's 48% of the total, and it's the highest percentage for women lawmakers in Europe. The result came in an election that saw centrist parties making the biggest gains. Professional hockey is back as the NHL last night played its first preseason games of the year. And later today, a new team takes the ice for its first time ever. Benjamin Payne reports the Seattle Kraken will be the first NHL franchise to play their inaugural season amid the pandemic.
It'll be a test for major sports leagues across the U.S., as neither the NBA nor the WNBA nor the NFL has fielded a new franchise amid the pandemic. Tonight, the Kraken will take on their neighbors to the north, the Vancouver Canucks. But while it's a home game for Seattle, it won't actually be in Seattle. The puck will drop in Spokane, Washington. Finishing touches are still being made to the ice in their home arena, just a couple blocks away from Seattle's iconic Space Needle. But this is not the first time Seattle has had a pro hockey team. Back in 1917, the now defunct Seattle Metropolitans won hockey's ultimate trophy, the Stanley Cup. In fact, that was the first team from the U.S. to take home the cup. For NPR News, I'm Benjamin Payne.
And I'm Janine Herbst, and you're listening to NPR News.
Hey, my name is Peter Sagal, and I'm here to help you with the most pressing problem facing civilization today. There are too many good podcasts to listen to. Now, why not avoid that whole problem by listening to an extremely silly podcast hosted by me? On Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, it's wisecracks about the week's news, shenanigans, fart jokes, and general silliness. And doesn't that sound pretty great right now? Listen to the Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me podcast from NPR.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate magazine. If you are looking for some issues, if you need to renew your subscription, if you are just wanting to check out the trading cards and the new editions and all of this, well, all you have to do is visit fatemag.com. You can find everything there. Phyllis does such a fantastic job. She has got, we even have t-shirts. And if you see me, you'll see one. I will be at a con at some point, I promise. But we are so just whirling away. She is doing our editions. We have a new one out. So be sure you check it out. fatemag.com. You just never know what you're going to find that you really and truly need there. So tonight's guest is Tony Rathman. Tony is a EVP specialist, actually. He is one of my favorite people in the field. He is the founder and lead investigator at Entity Voices. He's the host of Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence live stream on KGRA. He is the producer of A World Awakening for Andrea Perron. He is the host of the Paranormal Evidence Group at entityvoices.com. And he truly is great at what he does. I am not one to just toss him out, but, you know, I call him as I see him. Y'all know that. And he is it. And Robert, I'm so glad that you love your trading cards. I love mine too. And I give them away too, which is hard because I really love them all. But, you know, we have uncirculated editions. If you're trying to fill out your Fate library, you can do it there. Phyllis knows everything. Just ask. You can reach her through email from the website. Tony, I am so glad that you are here. This has been one of my more interesting discussions, and I thank Robert for his very thoughtful questions.
Yeah, those were great, and I love being here as well. I'm sure you know that I could speak probably for days without stopping about paranormal, and always love discussing it. But yeah, those questions were well thought through and fantastic, so I enjoyed those.
Well, he is an independent thinker, and I enjoy him very much, so I'm glad you did too. We have got all kinds of things to discuss. We have your EVPs that we're going to get to, but I really thought that maybe you would want to continue your thought.
Sure, I'm just trying to remember what we were last talking about.
Well, I think really that we were still expanding on the differing opinions of what the afterlife is.
Oh, yes.
What will we be gaining? What will we be able to experience differently? That kind of thing. And are we really going to get to go, am I going to get to the nebula there on Orion's belt to kind of surf through and see if there's two there? And I'd like to see both of them. So,
well, my personal opinion is, if that's what you want to be able to see and do, then that's exactly what you'll be able to see and do. And here's why I think that. We as human beings, we're given free will. We can make whatever decision we want, whether it be the right one, whether it be the wrong one. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we have the ability to have free will at our disposal and make our own decisions. So this is where, when other investigators come up to me and go, "Oh, we've got to cross them over, they're trapped."
Right.
This is where, and again, what I'm speaking of is my personal opinion over, so I don't want to jump on anyone else's toes if they believe that, or that's fine, because none of us are 100% sure, and we're all looking for answers. So I just want to preface that.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I've actually done that, but only because a spirit let it be known that that's what they felt they needed.
Well, we've done it as well.
You can't just do it yourself without verification of that.
Absolutely correct. And we've removed spirits from locations. We've crossed them over. Now, do we know 100% sure that we crossed them over? No, but there are signs that can be given that lead you in the right direction to know that you have. Have we removed spirits from locations? Oh, yes. Did that remove the negative entity? Oh, no. We've had them show back up a year, 2 years later in completely different locations, saying to us what we said when we kicked them out of one location a year ago or 2 years ago. So we know they can do that. But what I think really is part of the transition is that there are parts of you as a human being, and that's just the spiritual part inside you, the entity, the consciousness, however you want to term it, that's going to go with you. And free will is one of them. And so, Kat, like you were saying, if you want to go see the nebula, you're going to have that ability. They have ability to come back, visit, check on people, leave, go back. Heaven in religious aspect is defined as a place. Well, to me, it's more of a dimension, not necessarily a place. And without time being in existence, time is a human construct, and it doesn't really exist. So if you combine those thoughts and the fact that we were talking before about when you, as pure energy, if you think something, it just happens. There should be no limitations on where you can go, what you can experience, and what you can do.
Don't you think that's just kind of the same as, people have a mindset here that they are locked into some sort of rigidity relevant to their lives? Like, you can't step beyond these boundaries or you're going to be ridiculed or homeless or, any number of the negative things that are used to control people's minds.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct.
And that happens in the afterlife. I have seen that happen in the afterlife too. Right.
And if you ever speak to investigators, and it doesn't even have to be investigators, it can be people in the UFO field or looking for cryptids or anything in between. But a lot of people will say, well, you know what? I used to be able to lucid dream, or I used to be able to do this or that when I was younger. But when I got older, it all just quit. Well, it quit because our day-to-day lives hindered it. Or like you said about other people saying, oh, that didn't happen. That couldn't have happened to you. And it literally gets stifled. Yes. And I don't think some of those abilities or that openness or that connection would get stifled if life wasn't like it is.
I agree with that, because you hear often about specifically women in male-dominated cultures,
right?
Who finally just say, you know what, I'm out, and they literally have to escape,
right?
And and I'm sure there are other role reversals with that. I'm not trying to be gender specific, but it does tend to lend itself that way.
Absolutely, and you're right. It's such a broad range of. I mean, even somebody. Okay, let's face it. It's 2021 now, and the fact that ghost shows and investigation shows have been out for 15, 17 years, it's opened up people to be able to feel more confident to talk about them. But let's face it, if it was 1970 and you were talking about ghosts in your home, your neighbors, your friends, your church, or anything in between is going to be like, what are you talking about? Don't say stuff like that. That's not true. You couldn't have experienced that. Well, yeah, they could have.
Yeah, they could have. And, I had a grandmother who was not the least bit concerned what people thought of her New Age thoughts. She was Southern Baptist. She read her horoscope every day. She loved that Gene Dixon was also Ronald Reagan's, astrologer. So, wow. She just thought things were different and interesting, and she was very much New Age before New Age was a thing, or as it was coming.
Yep.
She was always independent like that.
That's awesome.
She had a great husband for that. He worked all the time. He worked out of town. He was back and forth. So she had a lot of free time. She researched and read.
That's fantastic. That's awesome though. But it takes a real strong person to do that. Like I said, things have changed and opened up and allows people to communicate more freely about these subject matters. But let's face it, that would have social being isolated socially and looked down upon, and those were things that in society many years ago could have destroyed a person. So
and did.
Being able to get through that and talk about things like that, like you were saying, I commend that person tremendously.
Well, she was tough as a light or not, but very stylish.
Very cool.
But we've I really think, especially like we were talking about in the first hour with the telepathy, that is, I think, a key that people miss a lot, is that.
Yep.
I just wanted to touch back on that. So, where you want to go now?
You want to hear an EVP or 2 or 3?
Maybe 8.
Maybe 8.
Well, I do. And I am going to tell you that we've got a little less than 2 minutes till our break.
We can do them after the break then.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I could sit here and talk to you about all of this stuff forever.
So could I.
This is my favorite. I love when other people acknowledge that anomalous subjects interface with each other.
Yep.
Because I feel it's so true. And I appreciate Robert bringing that to the fore of this conversation, because I knew you felt that too. I just didn't know how out there to get you. And thank you for that. Sherry is cheering for the EVPs. So I tell you what, why don't we go ahead and take that break now, and we will come back and we will EVP you to pieces. Sherry, work for you? I know it does. So that being said, we're going to take this little break and we'll be right back.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. Are you ready for some EVPs? That's what I want to know, because we have got the man in the house who brought them, Tony Rathman. Thank you. I love when you do this.
My pleasure.
Do you want to set up number one?
I sure do. So this EVP was captured at the Jerome Grand Hotel in Jerome, Arizona. And they've got these very old elevators which are still operational. And I went down to get the last of my wife's and my luggage out of the car. And I was coming up the elevator alone. And of course, anytime we're in a haunted location, I'm running a digital recorder, and that's what was running while I was coming up this elevator. You will not hear me speak at all, but you will hear someone else speak very clearly. And it is not my wife, and there was no one else in the elevator. And go ahead and play that, and I can talk a little bit more after it's heard.
Alrighty. Well, I'm going to run it once and then run it again.
Okay.
So get your ears ready. Here you go.
Key.
Okay, were y'all listening? Did you hear it? I'm going to play it one more time.
Key.
So, did you like that? Sherry, could you hear and understand it? I heard it. I understood it. And that was not Cherie?
No.
That's wild.
No. Yeah, it sounds to me like maybe a 11, 12-year-old boy. And the expression in his voice and the fact that he uses my name and he says, Tony, keep it bad. Not sure what he means by that. I mean, it was a good trip. There was nothing bad on the trip, but it was just more like a emotional expression that I was there, that we were staying there. But just insane. There were no kids in the entire hotel when that was captured. Just one or two other rooms occupied that night, but no kids. And where that came from, who it was, no idea.
That's just bizarre. Sherry thought it was a female voice. I did too. But young male.
It could be. That is possible. It could be.
But it was very good. So she said it sounded young female to her, but she wasn't there. Well, he didn't hear it live, so.
Yeah, I didn't hear it live. I didn't hear it until we played back the recording, but it very well could be female. Sometimes it is difficult to determine, so that is definitely a possibility.
Well, and young males, especially when those voices start to change, can sound like that too. Okay.
Very true.
Here is number 2. Again, I'm going to run it twice.
I just came here to talk to you.
Okay, Tony, I did not let you set that up. My apologies, my friend.
Oh, that's okay. This particular EVP was captured in actually a cemetery here in Arizona, and it's called the Lost Souls Cemetery because the people that are buried there either didn't have family members or didn't have the financial income to be buried traditionally. So it's nicknamed the Lost Souls Cemetery. Well, we were in there and we were just asking some simple questions, and I think I say something along the lines of, I just want to speak with you. And you hear this, it's in the wind noise because this is outside. Yes. You hear this response, get out of my house, which is really odd because we were outside. But, you know, whether there was a house there at one time and we happened to be standing where that house was at some point, not sure. But it's definitely in the wind noise of the EVP, but it's very clear what's being said.
Let's run that one more time.
I just came here to talk to you.
That was clear. And, you know,
it is.
When you catch something in the wind like that, it's a little bit creepy crawly.
Yes. Yes, it is.
It really is. Okay. Set up number 3 for me.
Okay, number 3 was actually captured in the old Phelps Dodge Hospital, which when we ran it, we called the Copper Canyon Paranormal Research Center. Yes. We were in there multiple nights a week, either for tours, investigations, and then sometimes just when my wife and I wanted to go research and investigate. And there was a spirit in there that kept showing his presence. And when I say showing, he would say stuff on EVPs. He would give us indications on Mel meters and REM pods and everything else. And so we were asking for another spirit, and he gives us his name, and that's what's on this EVP.
I love that because this is one that I heard right off the bat. But we're going to play it through twice. Here we go.
Mary, are you in here again?
Here we go.
Mary, are you in here again?
That one's buried a little bit better. I'm going to play it one more time.
Okay.
Mary, are you in here again?
Because it's funny, even when I think that I was having a struggle the first time I ever heard this one, my recording system is picking it up perfectly. So
nice.
I hope everybody is hearing it. If not, you can go back and listen to the recording of this, and it may actually be a little clearer, but I think it's fine. I am just so shocked by some of these. What about number 4?
Number 4 was captured. We were called to a private home investigation, and the family was complaining about activity in the home. And we showed up, and this probably wasn't more than 10, 15 minutes into the investigation. And my wife was running digital recorder in one of the back bedrooms, asked a couple of questions, and I'll let you play it for them to hear what came across.
I like this one too. Here we go.
Can you please tell me your name?
That was your name.
Yes, and not even just first, but it was our last name.
Yes.
And we had never stepped foot in this location before, and it's instances like this that I talk about, that universal consciousness, because when we kept saying what our names was, there was a certain point where we realized we would go to locations we had never been to before, and those names were being used. This was one of those instances. It was a private home investigation, and they were not happy we were there. They knew who we were, and they wanted us out.
No doubt. I'm going to play that one more time because
All right.
I just think it's amazing.
Can you please tell me your name?
Rathman. But it sounded like it was saying get out prior to that.
It was.
Multiple times.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they were adamant. That's
yeah,
wild.
and there was one in there too that said "get them out," meaning
Yes.
they wanted us out.
Are you ready for 5? What's this about?
Okay, 5 is also another private home investigation, similar situation. The family was hearing strange noises. They were experiencing a shadow-like figure in the upstairs hallway, and they had a younger daughter who wasn't sleeping well at night because she was hearing things. She had seen the shadowy figure. So we went up to the hallway that they were explaining that these things were occurring. We set up motion detectors, laser grids, digital recorders to catch any EVPs. We set up a full spectrum camera that would monitor the motion detectors, the laser grids, as well as sound in the hallway. And the camera was monitoring every other piece of equipment that was in front of it. Well, we got the equipment home, and we told the family we were going to review it to see what was captured because we let it run. And we get home, and the camera did not work. There was nothing there. So then we went to the digital recorders to listen to the audio, and I'll let you play this because this is what was on the digital recorder.
I'm just trying to help you out, man. Here we go.
Can you walk up and down the hall for us?
I'm going to play that through. Here we go.
Can you walk up and down the hall for us?
And they were serious.
They were absolutely serious and absolutely correct. The camera, for some reason, I don't know why, did not record a thing. But the most amazing part of this is when we played that for the homeowner, they recognized the voice and identified a past family member who had passed away about a year and a half ago.
That is interesting. But I like the emphasis that she put on that. So I am just amazed by that. Sherry, do you want me to play that again? Is this the one that you didn't? I just saw definitely a voice, although I didn't clearly hear what it said.
Let me just state what it says. It says the camera is not working.
And I like the emphasis that they used to. Okay. I'm going to, now that you've told her, I'm going to play that through so she can probably pick that out.
Sure.
Can you walk up and down the hall for us?
I mean, that's just, pay attention. What about number 6?
Okay, number 6 was captured at a hotel that's had a reputation of being haunted for, I don't even know how long, 80 years. And we were doing an EVP session on the stairwell. And I asked a simple question of, can you tell me your name? And this response is what came through when I asked that question.
Here we go.
Can you tell me your name?
Once more with feeling.
Can you tell me your name?
That is just so eerie.
It is. And it's so, there's a couple things about, and I was speaking of this before about there's more in an EVP than just what's being said. You can hear sort of his frustration because of the N word that he uses in it. But you can hear he's sort of shocked that I asked that. And he seems a little irritated by the fact that I asked it. And, in talking about with our other team members about this one, that particular hotel kind of had a reputation of being sort of secretive. In fact, for years, there were underground tunnels between it, the Renaissance Hotel, and I can't think of the name of the other one off the top of my head. But like John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe used to use that underground tunnel system to meet up without anyone having to walk down the street or switch hotels because nobody would know there was an underground tunnel. So when we got that EVP, we had it for a while, and then we had that discussion about it, and it was pointed out that hotel kind of had that secretive reputation of not disclosing information or people what they're doing. And so that expression and that sort of irritated sound makes perfect sense.
It does. I'm going to play that once more.
Can you tell me your name?
That's just crazy. Okay. Do you want to set up number 7?
Sure. Number 7, also a private home investigation, and we do a lot of those. But this particular family had a baby on the way, and there were some crazy things going on. Things moving, things being put in one location, and then when they'd go back for it, it wasn't there, and they'd find it completely somewhere else. There were some voices that were heard at night, so we went to check it out. Well, we determined that there was at least one, if not more, spirits in the home. And again, this was Cherie, and Cherie went into what was soon to be the baby's room and said, you know, spirits, you're not welcome here. You're scaring the family. You need to get out. And this is what showed up after she said that on the recorder.
Okay, I love this one.
You better leave this house. You are not welcome in here.
I'm going to play it once more.
You better leave this house. You are not welcome in here.
See, I think that just is so interesting because I've never heard a spirit say that.
Well, you're absolutely correct. And I don't think we had either. But it just, you know, it paints such a different picture of what you're dealing with compared to like what Hollywood shows you. And let's face it, Hollywood's Hollywood for a reason because it's entertainment. But this spirit literally told my wife, we're sorry. And it didn't say, I'm sorry. It said, we're sorry. So there was more than one in there.
Well,
and, you know, to have it be that sympathetic and that understanding and that intelligent, for her to say what my wife said and then have it come back and say, we're sorry. I mean, that's incredible.
It is. Relevant to number 6, Robert says many entities are shy about sharing their name. It's believed that knowing their name gives you power over them.
That is a definite definition, especially when you're dealing with darker entities or the word I don't like to use, but demonic. But yeah, they don't like to reveal their name. But we found that past human spirits, if you gain trust, will actually reveal names, because we've got quite a few of them and actually been able to historically show that they lived during a time frame that they were supposedly responding from. So that's pretty cool.
Well, I think it's pretty cool too. I'm going to save this last one because we have to take a break. But we'll be right back after this message with our final EVP and discussion about it. And now we've brought up the D word. So we will be right back. Y'all come back too. This is going to be interesting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back for the final segment of Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate magazine. And my guest tonight is Tony Rathman. If you have questions, you're going to need to get in chat and get them up there. We have been listening to some EVPs that he sent. And we have got one left to do. And I've got to tell you, Tony, I just love these.
Thank you. Thank
Your
you.
work
So do
is
we.
so good. Well, I love that every time I ask and you're excited to do it, you know, it's just cool because your work is so diverse. It's so good that it's never even close to the same thing twice.
Well, thank you very much. And yeah, I can't even tell you how many terabytes of external drives we have from investigation after investigation after investigation. And, you know, these are just little clips taken from, you know, maybe a 7 to 10, 15-minute recording.
Right.
And we've got hundreds of those. And then we run digital recorders and, you know, cameras and parabolic mics all at the same time. So, you know, I can't even tell you how many files and EVPs we probably have.
Well, I have a sage shell, you know, cleansing shell.
Yep.
That sits on my desk. And the last count that this one had was 20-something cards and 5 thumb drives. So,
wow.
Yes. And it's funny because I was sitting there thinking, you know, I'd really like to go back and look at blah, 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 blah. And I look over at the shell and I'm like, oh my God. Maybe next year. But I do. I have found some really cool things and, you know, I love it. I get different stuff every time I go to Sloss. I get stuff every time I go to Old South Pittsburgh.
Right.
Yeah, and those are my two kind of stomping ground things. I love going to Fort Morgan, which is down by the Gulf Coast.
Sure.
And I get EVPs in there all the time. And I really thought all of those were residual hauntings, and they're not.
Right. That's the cool thing about asking a question is the timing and relevance. What was the relevant answer that they gave, and did it answer the question you asked? When it does, that's not residual. That's intelligent.
Nope. And I would say that the vast majority of my EVPs are intelligent answers.
Yep.
I know that around the fort, if you're in certain places, you know, stone tape theory applies. There is a lot of residual energy where sentinels walked, you know, the stone walls.
Right.
But the interior of the fort is very active and very, you know, there's like a little grassy plain there in the center and different places. I had an incredibly long EVP session in the battery outside of it, which wasn't even part of the early wars. So, and I've got to tell you, when they have reenactors, you have not lived until you've been walking across a field and a Panzer tank comes out at you from the trees.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure.
I did not know they were reenacting. How fast can a cat run? As fast as she needs to. Yes. But I am going to go to number 8, and then we have a question for you relevant to other kinds of spirits.
Sure. Okay, number 8 was actually captured at the Diplomat Hotel in Baguio City, Philippines. And this place was insane. Probably top place we've ever investigated as far as activity, as far as the facts that we could hear with our own ears half the things they were saying to us. But in this particular recording, I asked my wife to ask a set of questions because we were hearing voices left and right. And we didn't know what language we were going to get our responses in. But during this trip, we got responses in English, Tagalog, Japanese, and Latin. Now, this particular responses are all English, but they did vary as we asked various other questions. So I'll let you play this.
Alrighty. Y'all ready? Here we go.
Do you miss your family? Do you need help? What happened to you? Are you trapped here in this building?
Maybe. Hear it?
Okay, let's run through that one more time.
Do you miss your family? Do you need help? What happened to you? Are you trapped here in this building?
Maybe. Hear it?
Now, this was the one that I told you that I heard something else in.
Right.
When
right.
I laughingly asked if you had sent a test for me. So, and I didn't tell you which one I thought that was in. But this is the one that after Cherie asks, do you need help? I heard a man say, I've asked for it.
Wow.
So it was like, well, I asked somebody else and nothing happened. So, but
and that's so possible. There were so many vocal responses, and my wife and I were the only one in this entire building. In fact, the security guard took like 10 steps from the initial gate and said, "You're on your own. That's as far as I go." And wow. I mean, locals just won't go anywhere near it. Well, we thought most of it was probably just hype, but it wasn't. And the most curious part about the EVP you just played is she asked 4 or 5 different questions, and there is a response to every single one.
Yes, there is.
And the voice, the main voice, is the same. It does switch. The voice changes. But there are also other voices in the background.
Yes.
But the main answers are the most prevalent. Are you trapped here? Not the baby. Can we help you? We're in a frenzy. He has a wife. What happened to you? They were beaten. That sounded female. But this hotel actually during World War II was taken over, and the building was used as a war headquarters. But there were actually nuns and priests in this building that were beheaded. So the whole tragic effect of this location portrays out through this. So it was crazy.
No doubt. That is just a holy wow thing.
It is.
Well, I am so glad that you shared those.
You're so welcome. I
love
enjoyed
your work.
going through them and talking about it and everything else paranormal. So this was a real pleasure, Kat. Thank you.
Well, we have 6 minutes left, and Sherry
Cool.
has a question for you.
Sure.
And there it is. She wanted to know, have you ever run into demonic spirits? And that question came after you were talking about the demons hate, and demons do hate to give you their name, but for whatever reason, I've had one do it, and I looked up the name, and I was like, oh, that's a lesser demon. And I said the name, and everyone with me went, oh, right? And I'm like, no, I don't allow that. He gave me the name. I looked it up. He's a lesser demon. That's who's talking to us. So, now we know.
Right.
And I do not believe that I give them power if I say their name. I mean, he may want to feel that way and feel that he is, whatever. But it was so funny that everybody, and these were experienced paranormal people, just drew back in horror, and there was a collective gasp when I said his name.
Wow.
And I was just like, well, there you go. What about you? Have you run into any?
Well, I'm going to have to say, just because the term itself, demonic,
brings on chills
is
for some
hard
people.
to define. So what I will say is, have we run into dark, negative entities? Yes, very much so. Were they truly verging on what kind of is socially accepted as what demonic is? I'm going to say no, only because the whole demonic concept, a lot of it comes from Hollywood, but there is definitely a difference between what I'm going to say is a dark entity or a negative entity compared to your average human spirit. But would I say we've come across demonic? No, I probably wouldn't. And I think, based off of past stories and stuff about what has occurred with truly demonic, we probably haven't run into that, and we've been doing this almost 12 years. But it's hard to make that classification because there's not a cut and dry determination between what a negative or a dark entity is and what's demonic. And there's a lot of gray areas in between about what's what. It's a difference between a glass sliding across a counter or the refrigerator flying at you. So,
pretty much. That's
right.
a good
Would
description.
I say we've come up against demonic? No, I'd have to say no.
And thank God for that.
Right. That's not a bad thing.
No, that is not a bad thing, said the voice of experience. So, I just have to tell you that I have had the best time with you. Thank you for being here.
You bet. I enjoyed it just as much. I mean, I can't believe 2 hours have gone by.
I know.
Shows you how
it
much
always does.
Always flies.
But that's because you're so cool and you have so much information to share, and it just goes zoop. So, thank you again. And for everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. It's going to be posted. You can find us anywhere that you subscribe. We're iHeart, iTunes. We're an Alexa. You just ask for us and she plays us. And everywhere else, if you're a scratcher, we're even on Deezer. So you can just and have a good time with that. So, and I hear that we're all the rage in India and GeoSavan. So there you go. If you have any questions or comments about this show, please reach out to me. I will get them to Tony, or you can go straight to Tony. He is on Facebook, and his page is Entity Voices, and you can find him at entityvoices.com as well. Is correct, Tony?
That is correct.
Yay. And you can catch his podcast on KGRA-DB. So go and look for him. And thank you so much. I'm so glad y'all were here. We'll see you next time. Same cat time, same cat channel. Thank you. And good night. Oh, I can't go with that yet. It's a tough time. Be the change. You know that. So, be the person that you would want to have as a friend, as a child, as a spouse. Just be the change you want to see. You can manifest this. We can manifest this. Make the world better. Be better. Be you. Thanks again.